If you ask someone to name a female scientist, often they'll come up with Marie Curie or sometimes Rosalind Franklin, but surprisingly few people seem to have heard of Dorothy Crowfoot Hodgkin, and that's despite her being the only British woman to win a Nobel Prize in Science, or at least the only British woman to win a Nobel Prize in Science so far. So what did she do? Dorothy's field was X-ray crystallography. This involves exposing a crystallized substance to a beam of X-rays and then using the pattern of X-rays bouncing off the substance to calculate how the individual atoms in that substance are arranged. She used this technique to determine the structures of several complex organic molecules with medical significance, so penicillin, the antibiotic, vitamin B12, which is important in anemia, and insulin for the treatment of diabetes. Structure and function are really closely related in these kinds of biological molecule, so finding out their structure was a crucial step forward. However, I'm not going to focus on Dorothy's science for the rest of this talk. I want to outline instead some of the qualities that I think make her such an inspirational scientist. For context, when Dorothy arrived in Oxford as a first-year undergraduate in 1928, the university had only been awarding degrees to women for 8 years, and various aspects of university life, from many of the societies to even some of the lectures, remained off-limits to female students. 36 years later, when she won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, a female scientist was still such an outlandish idea that the newspapers focused not on the quality of her work, but on the fact that she was, as they put it, an affable-looking housewife and mother of 3. Growing up in this environment, where women really were not encouraged to pursue scientific careers, Dorothy's determination to follow her own interests was crucial. Had it not been for this determination, her life might have followed a very different trajectory, as the secondary school she attended did not actually offer chemistry to girls. The female students had to take a needlework class while the boys were in the chemistry lab. Fortunately, Dorothy and her friend Nora, who really weren't too happy about this situation, they basically argued until they were eventually allowed to take chemistry despite being girls. So you can see them at the back left of this photograph of the male-dominated chemistry class. That determination she showed as a child never really left her, and manifested itself in various ways throughout her career. Another barrier she faced was a debilitating health condition, rheumatoid arthritis, with which she was diagnosed in her 20s. The illness led to swelling and deformation of her fingers, and this was particularly inconvenient in a field like X-ray crystallography, which involved delicate manipulations of tiny crystals. But Dorothy didn't let that stop her. Even when it meant having to have a special lever installed because she could no longer operate the switch on her X-ray equipment, she just found a way and got on with it. One of the many criticisms of the Nobel Prize is that it ascribes particular discoveries or advances to a maximum of just 3 individuals, overlooking the importance of teamwork in science, and perhaps giving an impression of individualistic scientists competing with one another to make the next big breakthrough. But Dorothy exemplified the collaborative rather than the competitive nature of science, welcoming anyone who wanted to work with her, and always downplaying her own achievements to emphasize the role of her colleagues. This quote, for example, is from a letter she wrote to a journalist, actually protesting that she'd been given too much credit for the determination of the structure of insulin, and portraying it as very much a team effort. Sometimes we think of the scientist as someone who is very much absorbed in their own particular niche specialism, and perhaps this can be a bit off-putting to people contemplating a scientific research career. But Dorothy proves that it's absolutely possible to maintain other interests and activities alongside being a first-rate scientist. Not only did she sustain a family life, having 3 children, as the newspapers were so keen to point out, but she was also very actively involved with a number of social and political causes, particularly in relation to the Vietnam War, and she even found the time and energy to serve for 12 years as president of the Pugwash Conferences, which is an organisation promoting nuclear disarmament. Now, there's a lot more I could say about Dorothy, but I'm going to leave it there for now. And I'd just like to acknowledge and recommend this excellent biography by Georgina Ferry for anyone who'd like to know more.